Okay, hi. So today I'm going to be talking about influential modern authors that I have never read a book from before. Part of this is maybe like you telling me where to start with these authors, because they're authors that I have interest in or a potential interest in who are popular or influential in some way, known or well-known in some way. Maybe they've been shortlisted or longlisted, maybe they've won some prizes, and they have at least some body of work. I am the type of reader who dabbles a lot, so I am a dabbler of genres. I am an omnivore. I read kind of all over the map, and I also don't usually dive super deep into someone's backlist. I may read one book from an author and then jump to a next one and next one and next one. I think I'm most likely to have only ever read one book from an author. You got to make sure, or at least for me, I have to make sure I start with the right book so I have the correct impression, so I want to keep reading from them. This is in no particular order, but the first one on the list is Maggie O'Farrell. Maggie O'Farrell, I own a book from. I own Hamnet, and I started it maybe a few years ago, but I was just not in the mood for that, so I put it down. It's a book that I've honestly put off in some capacity because I wanted to read Hamlet and then read Hamnet because it's been so many years since I've read any Shakespeare. So yeah, I have interest in Maggie O'Farrell. I know that she has at least one nonfiction that I have on my TBR as well. I think it's just like getting into her, but I've like hyped her up also. Like I've hyped up Hamnet so much in my head because I was so hyped by the book. I feel like from book 2 when it came out and like how people reacted to it. Okay, the next one is Ruth Ozeki. So Ruth Ozeki recently won the Women's Prize for the Book of Form and Emptiness. I am not as much interested in that. I heard kind of mixed reviews of it. It was very long. It felt like it was longer than it needed to be. And I'm hit or miss with child protagonists. So the one that I want to read, and it was Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot that kind of sold me on this book when he reviewed it a few years ago, is My Year of Meats. Of her books, it sounds like it has the most interesting premise, but I've just never prioritized actually reading it. The next one is Neil Gaiman. So I read a decent amount of fantasy, and he has a lot of like pretty famous works. I think that American Gods is very famous, if I am remembering correctly. It's been made into a television series. There's Coraline that was made into a movie. The Graveyard Book, which I think is written for younger audiences. Norse mythology, The Ocean at the End of the Lane. He writes high fantasy. I think he writes more present day things that have like a fantastic twist. He writes for a wide variety of audiences and different types of books. I'm guessing that there has to be a correct book for me to get into him. I'm just not really sure what it is. Okay, the next one is Kazuo Ishiguro. I think Never Let Me Go is his most famous. The Remains of the Day is also very famous. He also recently came out with like Clara and the Sun. There's The Buried Giant. He seems to have more mass appeal. People across multiple genres seem to be drawn to him. He seems to write speculative literary fiction, which is like a niche that I can definitely fall into the pocket of as a reader. But I don't know, maybe it's the covers of his books. Clara and the Sun didn't get the greatest reviews. I think it's like almost like sometimes his popularity kind of puts me off because Never Let Me Go was like very famous. But sometimes like New York Times bestseller type things don't really like work for me, but I don't know if this is one of those cases, and I don't really know where to start with him. Okay, another one is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He writes in Spanish, but many, if not all of his works have been translated into English. I have owned 100 Years of Solitude for I don't know how long, and I have not read it. I hear it's wonderful. Again, it's like literary. I want to say it's more magical realism. I am, as a reader, very attracted to that type of stuff, but like something like has always like made me not read it. I've never really had much of an interest in picking up any of his other books, but I don't know, it's just like, it's been on my TBR for so long and so many people like it, but I'm also like, is it worth the hype? I don't know. So the next author is TJ Klune. He's been, I think, writing for a decent amount of time, but just like came up in popularity within the last few years with The House in the Cerulean Sea. This gets described as like middle grade for adults. It has that charming and atmospheric and like maybe softer fantasy vibe. I think it's something that I would like. It has pretty wide appeal. He's also, I don't know if these are the same vibe, but the covers kind of give me the same vibe. He's written Under the Whispering Door and In the Lives of Puppets came out this year. He's one of those authors that like, I'm like, I think I would probably like at least enjoy his books, but I'm not sure if it's like someone I would want to return to. And I don't really know where to start. I think he also writes some romance. Like he used to write more like romantic books or like more romance focused books, which I wouldn't mind because I do like a romance here and there. Okay, next one, and a little bit more commercial like TJ Klune, or fits that like commercial pocket better, especially with the cover art, is Emily Henry. I was interested in her when A Million Junes came out. I had it on my TBR. For some reason, I don't remember why I took it off of my TBR, but like every time I see one of her books out, like the colors and the pops, how it's kind of conveyed is like they're romantic and there's banter, but there's kind of a little bit more plot going on in the books. Feels like a chill, like for me, like palate cleanser read that I can just like get into, and it's not super high stakes and I can enjoy myself reading it, but I haven't read any of them. Like People We Meet on Vacation, Beach Read, Book Lovers, Happy Place. So they all fall kind of into the same vein of read, and it's something that like if I'm in the mood, I should probably pick one up. I just really don't know which one would vibe with me most. I don't think it's Book Lovers because unpopular opinion, I don't really like books about books. I feel like this one is like kind of an ode to Eric Carl Anderson because it's Joyce Carol Oates. And I think that if you like watch my channel, you've probably heard of his channel because he's like, I think one of the bigger like literary fiction reading channels. He follows all the prizes, and I think like every prize season he is hoping Joyce Carol Oates' most recent book gets on the Women's Prize long list. She has such a massive backlist that I truly don't know where to begin. I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly, that he came out with a video years ago of recommending her books or talking through her books. And the one that I wrote down that I wanted to read was Blonde, which is, I believe, like a fictional retelling of Marilyn Monroe. And it's like 900 pages. I'm like, why did I think that would be the proper introduction? I don't know. But it was the one that appealed to me most at the time. And I've seen it in used bookstores, debated picking it up. But yeah, I feel like her backlist is very intimidating. And again, I want to start with the right book, so I am more interested in continuing on. Because if I start with one and I'm like, then I probably would never pick the author up again. Okay, the next one is Allie Smith. In more recent years, did like the Seasons Quartet. And I don't think that the stories were necessarily connected. And I didn't really know what they were about, but it's vibes. I like the idea of like being some connectivity between works. She's also written How to Be Both. I think that at least one of the books from that quartet got longlisted for the Women's Prize, but she's one of those authors that I am like, has like that literary fiction appeal. And I always see her in my used bookstore that I go to and frequent, but I'm just like not really sure where to start, if she would actually work for me, or if it's one of those things where I would pick it up and like put the book down fairly quickly. I don't know. Okay, so the last one I think is funny because it's Sarah J Maas. Okay, so my experience with being a reader is like I've gotten back into it post-college. So I would say from 2015 15 onwards, I've been reading a ton. And I started out being very snobby about it, and like a snobby literary fiction reader who didn't like these popular mainstream authors because I was better than that, and that wasn't true literary works, and blah, 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 blah. I do not any longer gatekeep reading at all. And I kind of read for different purposes, and I read, like I said, a wide variety of genres, and I've been very into fantasy lately. And, you know, I like drama. I don't know, like, drama's fun. I don't like to be involved in drama, but I like to read about drama. Or I like to read dramatic situations. Or I like to be on the periphery of that. As an example, like, to fill that void, I love, like, cheesy CW, like Riverdale, One Tree Hill, like these teeny bopper shows that are like soap operas. That fills the void. Reality TV also fills the void. I think Sarah J Maas could fill that void. It's just like one of those things that like I've had in my head for so long. I would never read her, but now I'm like, but are you? Are you going to read her? I think you're going to read her. So, yeah, she's the last one on the list. I probably wouldn't start with Throne of Glass. I would probably start with, like, ACOTAR if I were to get into her, or maybe Crescent City, but probably ACOTAR. So that was my last author, and that is all I have for this video. I would be interested to know what, like, popular authors, like, you have not read, and maybe it's one that I've read, and I can recommend you which book I think you should start with, or which one I've read and I don't recommend you start with. But that is all I got, so until next time, happy reading.